This is an instructional video for the PM3 engraver and other manual engravers. The PM3 and the PM5 and the PM5 CA are all similar, and they all operate basically the same way, with the only exception of the holding capacity on the 5 and the 5 CA is greater. It'll hold bulkier objects and also cups and bowls. The PM3 comes mostly assembled out of the box, with the exception of the motor bracket, idler pulleys and tension assembly, and the spindle. The motor mounts on back with 2 or 3 screws that you'll need to attach, and there's also a connection so that your motor can get power. To put on the spindle, you've got the spindle, a wing nut, and a lever screw. Just connects on like that. Make sure it slides back and forth, and then you can lock it down at whatever ratio it needs to be on. The belt tension assembly is 3 parts. The spring goes over that arm. That goes on next, and then it all connects in to the clamp that's under the motor pulley here. On this end you have a yoke that fits into the groove on the spindle. Be careful when you put the belt on, because there's 2 ways you can put it on. One way is going to turn it backwards. You want the motor and the spindle to both turn the same direction. When the motor's on, it's going to turn clockwise, and you want the spindle to also turn clockwise. If you get it on backwards, it's going to turn the pulley backwards, which is going to turn your cutter backwards. The machine comes with a standard set of 1-inch condensed master type. We also have larger type sets available and smaller type sets available. The type slides in to the copy slide. Spell out what you want to spell, and you can center it up with the scale on the copy slides. Each machine is going to come with some carbide cutters. These carbide cutters come in different tip sizes. If you're engraving a small letter here, you want to have a very small tip size, like a 10 or a 15 thousandths tip size. As your letter gets larger on your engraving, the tip size on your cutter needs to increase also, so that you'll have a correct size engraving. Put the cutter in, you just drop it in the top of the spindle slowly, and this brass knob has reverse threads on it. So you'll reverse thread it into the spindle until it stops. Each machine comes with a cutter head wrench that you use to loosen up the set screw. You can adjust the cutter up and down. What you want to do on the bottom of the spindle is a depth regulator. You'll set that depth regulator. You can loosen up the little clamp here, turn it to where it's on 0, and then lock it down. And you'll loosen up your cutter. Make sure it's not sticking out of the bottom there. Get a flat piece of material, put it up against the nose cone, and then press it down until it stops. Then you can lock down your cutter. Right there, the cutter is even with the bottom of that nose cone, so you won't get any engraving depth. It should be set on 0. Then as you loosen this and turn your depth regulator to where the numbers get bigger, the more you turn that, the further that cutter is going to stick out of the bottom of the depth regulator. That regulates how deep you engrave into your nameplate. After you've put your type in, center it side to side. Underneath the copy table is a handle for the vise. You can open and close the vise with that handle. Get your nameplate in, center it up. There's a scale on the holding jigs. clamp it down. On the engraving arms, you've got a stylus arm that you'll want to put into the letter first, and then push down on your engraving, your spindle arm before you start to engrave. You'll also want to check to make sure that your engraving is on the plate, that it's not too far north or too far south, or that your letter ratio is wrong. Right now I've got it set on ratio 3. You can adjust the size engraving with your ratios. I've got a 1-inch master, so if I set the ratio on 2, it's like a calculator. If I have a 1 divided by 2, I'm going to end up with a 1/2 inch character on my plate. And if whatever you set this at, you also have to set the other ratio setting at 2. They have to correspond. 2 here and 2 here. If I do that, I've got a 1-inch letter divided by 2, I've got a 1/2 inch. If I set it on 4, set this one on 4, lock it down. Set this one on 4, lock it down. Then I've got a 1-inch divided by 4, which is going to give me a 1/4 inch letter down here. If I set it on 7, which will be the smallest, I've got 1 divided by 7, you're going to have a 1/7 of an inch character on your plate. Always check to make sure that your engraving is on your plate before you start. If you need to adjust it north or south, you can either use the slide in the back of the machine to adjust your engraving north and south, or you can also use the vise. You can loosen the center knob on the vise here and move it north and south. There's another knob on the vise towards the back of the machine. You can loosen it. It's a lock knob, and if you loosen it, that allows you to move the vise east and west. There's a scale over here on this side of the machine. You'll set that on 0. Lock it down. Your engraving should be centered east and west. I'm going to set it back on 3. Lock it down. Check my engraving. Make sure it's on the plate. Lock everything down. Turn on the motor. You always want to put the stylus down first, and then press down on the spindle arm and trace. When you're through engraving, you got to lift the spindle up first, and then go to the next letter. The spindle always has to be guided by the stylus. Just finished a nameplate. The machine comes with 2 of these copy slides, so you can do 2 lines at a time. This machine will also hold 2 more of these, so you can buy 2 additional copy slides and engrave up to 4 lines at a time. We have a smaller copy slide available. This is a 5/8 inch. This machine will hold 6 of the 5/8 inch copy slides. And we have a larger copy slide, 2 3/4. This machine will hold 2 of these copy slides. And you can also mix and match. If you want to have one large and one small, you can do that. There's another knob on the vise here. If you'll loosen that center knob, you can use the one closest to the table as a micro adjustment that allows you to move the vise north and south. There's also a larger T-handle lock screw on the side of the machine that allows you to rotate the vise. It'll rotate 360 degrees. Sometimes you may have a part that doesn't clamp up parallel to the copy table. A lot of times we'll engrave pocket knives, and if you put in a pocket knife and it doesn't sit correctly in the vise, you may have to adjust the vise to make the engraving straight on the part. There are other parts available for this machine. The holding jigs that come on the machine are about 4 or 5 inches long, but if you had a long piece of engraving material, you might need a longer holding jig. This is a 12-inch holding jig, and it just clamps on in place of the original, and it allows more support out here on the ends for your engraving material. We also have holding jigs for maybe say like the backs of watches or a round item, and this side is maybe like for Zippo lighters or really anything you can clamp up on in the machine you can engrave. We've got a machine, holding jig for round objects, for pins like cross pin sets or tubular items. If you're not doing plastic, you can also put in a diamond cutter. We have a diamond cutter. It's a non-rotating cutter. You don't have to turn the motor on to use it. It goes in the same way. It's got reverse threads on it. And normally, I'll just take the bottom of this depth regulator completely off, because you don't have to regulate your depth. It's only going to go to a certain depth in stock. But you can put in like a brass plate or an aluminum plate, and it will scribe on the surface of that material. Then you can take it out and use a blackener, like an oxidizer, that'll darken the letters. If you've got any questions, you can contact your retailer about additional parts or anything you may need. Thank you.